This is Charlie Parsons for Boxing Social in association with Empire Fight Store and William Hill. Delighted to be joined here today. Mr. Mark Neilson here in the Cotswolds. Must say, having a little bit of a renovation done, but it's looking very, very nice, my friend.
Good to see you again, mate. That's what you're putting Cirencester on the international map with all your interviews lately, aren't you?
It's crazy, mate. I can't complain, though. I've got a message last night. Someone was like, I'm taking my girlfriend out on a date. I searched up nice places in England and Cirencester came up. I instantly thought of me.
Yeah, listen, you're going to get signed up by Cirencester Tourist Board soon, mate, aren't you? You know, absolutely.
Might have to turn on the Christmas lights or something next year. Right, let's jump straight into it. Just over the weekend, Sunday night, we saw Tommy Fury against Jake Paul. Been doing the rounds, speaking about it. I keep saying it. It's a high level. It's a novice level fight. A high stakes grudge match being watched by millions of people worldwide. Whether people like it or not, we're going to sort of have to accept and move with the times. There is a platform for this and it's not going to go away. Just your reflection on how the whole week unfolded, and obviously Tommy victorious.
Do you know, I've seen lots of different views on it on social media. I see a lot of the purist boxing people very critical of it, but listen, they're boxers. Tommy Fury is a licensed professional boxer. He's got an amateur background. Jake Paul is a licensed professional boxer. So whether you like it or not, these are boxers. And they're getting massive, massive viewings, aren't they? So what was it, Tommy Fury, 7 million, Jake Paul, 30 million? Who knows if those numbers are accurate. But you know they'd have both got massive paydays. And if people don't like it, they don't have to pay the money. So the purists may not like it, but it's boxing. And I'll tell you what I've said to some people, these boxers these days can learn a few lessons from these guys on how to market themselves, because they're not doing anything wrong. It's not the sort of white collar, it's not the celebrity boxing. They're both actual boxers. Obviously the calibre isn't there, but on my show on Friday, there'd be better boxing and there'd be my guys on there who could beat both of these blindfold. But people want to pay their money, they pay their money, right?
And obviously, I think, like you said, you know, there is the whole influencer discussion, but I almost feel like these are in a little bit of a line of their own. Obviously, Jake Paul, very much not come from a fighting family like Tommy or anything, but has locked himself away in Puerto Rico for the last 3-4 years with BJ Flores. And when you put that amount of money into it, you're going to be at a low-level pro sort of status, I suppose.
Well, he's a boxer. I've seen far worse boxers. It's, you know, not great calibre for main event material pay-per-view, but they've got the social following, haven't they? So people are going to want to pay that. And I think people aren't complaining that they spent their 30 quid or 20, what was it? How much was it?
$19.95.
Yeah, so 20 quid. I'm not seeing anyone complaining they were ripped off and it was dire. You know, it was a WBC cruiserweight title on a chief support. Nobody's complaining about it. They've all learnt well. They're proper boxers. Jake Paul, he's not going to be ever going to win a world title, but people are paying for it. He's a boxer. He's training. He's taking it seriously. So, you know, good on him.
Do you think, obviously you said that there's things that can be learnt from these guys. Obviously they've got their huge platforms anyway, but is there almost a line as well that we've got to make sure isn't crossed in terms of, like, it can't take away from the actual pros and the stuff that we love doing, whether that be, you know, what you've got on Friday night or a world title fight or something. You know, it is its own lane and it can be taken seriously, but let's just make sure it sort of does stay in that lane and we're not taking the piss. I
don't think it'd take anything away from actual purist boxing, as we say, because it's a different sort of demographic, I think. The people who are paying this 20 quid, you hear these misfits boxing, it's a very different crowd.
They're not there to watch Badu Jack McGann, are they?
No, of course not. But it's not going to damage boxing. If anything, there may be a small percentage of those who become boxing fans. Yeah. I own a gym in Swindon, and I've had people inquiring more so this week about their sons wanting to start boxing. That's probably because of Tommy Fury and Jake Paul, not for some fights that are going on around the world. So if it gets more people involved in boxing, more eyeballs on the sport, that's only a good thing. And I know some of the old boys look at it with disgust, but it does. I've got a show on Friday. It won't affect my ticket sales negatively. It has no bearing on my and I've got a proper professional show on with some big main events and title fights. It had no bearing on that whatsoever. But if generations down the line, we've got young people coming into the sport because they're watching it, that's only a benefit, and more eyes on boxing, the better.
You know, as someone who does own a gym, Mark, I'm glad you said that, because yesterday when I was sort of asked my opinions on it, I went on for the second time, and there was a guy who called in, and he was like, "Oh, I don't agree. I've got a 16-year-old son who boxes and a 20-year-old daughter who boxes, and they think it's a circus." And I said, whether you like it or not, the reality is now, where 20, 30 years ago, and even 10 years ago, people said, "Oh, I want to be Marvin Hagler, Sugar Ray Robinson, Sugar Ray Leonard, Muhammad Ali." Whether we like it or not, people want to go in there and be a bit of a Jake Paul and KSI now. But at least they're in the gym. They're learning the discipline of boxing. And just because Jake Paul and Tommy and KSI have attracted them to the ring and to the gym, doesn't mean that they can't go on to be inspired by the elite level pros.
Yeah, and boxing's boxing. It's like football. Because these guys are kicking about on a five-a-side on a Wednesday night or on Sunday league, and they're not in the Premiership, doesn't mean that's not football.
Yeah.
These guys are putting gloves on, they're going to the gym, they're training, it's a sport. Who says that they've got to be under Queensberry rules and licensed by England Boxing or the British Boxing Board of Control to call it boxing? If they're keeping themselves fit, they're keeping themselves out of trouble, brilliant. Because boxing is littered, look at Anthony Joshua, is littered with people with these backstories that they could have been in prison. One of the guys on our show this Friday, he was like, he's 6-0 now, going to be signed up by Queensberry, we think, fairly soon. And he had lots of trouble. He was in court, didn't go to prison, went into boxing instead, kept him out of trouble, and now he's got a pro career. He's fit, he's working, he's training, he's trying to go for bigger things. He was involved in gangs and guns and police and violence. That's all gone. There's one person that's at boxing, so boxing can do that. So it doesn't matter if it's professional or amateur. If they're leaving that sort of lifestyle behind and getting himself in a gym 3-4 times a week and training, keeping themselves fit, who's going to complain about that? And who should complain about that? So, and I think it's here to stay. To touch on a point you made, so it's not going away. I think with so many different platforms to view boxing now, they're not going to be any less. There's going to be more, if anything. So there's going to be more of these people. We were talking earlier about, Ali Brooke, OnlyFans. Who cares? There's just more people coming into it. There's more platforms to view it on. There's going to be more people from different backgrounds and different sports crossing over and personalities. And so what? I think if anything, it's more eyeballs on boxing. As long as people don't get hurt and they're safe, don't get ripped off, I don't mind.
And just sort of lastly on this topic, because we don't want to spend the whole interview talking about it, but if someone does end up having a real nick for it, and that doesn't have to be anytime soon, but for example, say there's someone who's got a huge social following in 5 years' time, they start the influencer thing, clearly far too good for it, and go on to end up being a really good professional. We're not going to be watching them as influencers anyway. If they really are that good, they'll end up going on to be good pros anyway and fighting on pro cards because they won't have the level of competition with the influencer side.
Absolutely. If somebody's good enough, and there's going to be the odd gem, you throw sort of 500 people at it, the odd one or two of them, you throw some of them are going to have some natural talent. And if you add all the other things as well, the commitment, the attitude, the
money that you can pump into the big camps from having that platform.
And they're good enough to cross over into real professional boxing, and they can start making inroads. Some are going to happen because the more and more people coming into it, there's nothing that says that you've got to be an amateur for 10 years, have 200 fights, and was it Fabio Wardley was like a white collar boxer? Yeah. So there's lots of stories like that. You're going to get it. It's going to happen because more and more people are crossing over into it. Good on him.
Yeah, I mean, even Joe Joyce didn't start boxing until he was in his 20s. Anthony Joshua was 18. Anyway, moving on, Friday night, Jack McGann, again for you. Just firstly, obviously, the loss of Ijaz Ahmed and Casey Khademi, the fourth fight. Almost feels like this is never going to end, this ongoing saga. The 2 draws. Just on your side, obviously a real gutter, but still a really good card to go on in Bethnal Green, York Hall Friday.
Yeah, everyone was gutted. We couldn't believe it when we started to see the text messages coming in. You can imagine some of the comments that were on our group sort of messages. It was like, oh, you're kidding. So, they've had 3 fights, 2 draws, 2 cancellations now, and we're going to get it on. It's back out on our July show. And I've gutted for both of them. It was they sold a shed load of tickets, an absolute, it was a great fight, and it was going to be for us our first British title fight. We've had Commonwealth, we've had lots of other sort of like kind of titles, but our first British, it was a big landmark one for us. So we were gutted. Fortunately, we had a sort of really stacked card anyway, and there was never any doubt about the show, being pulled or continuing, because it was just right, okay. And we had some brilliant fights anyway. So the show goes on, and it's still a great card.
Well, that is the first thing I said when I got here. I said, look, at the time, was there any thought of just pulling the card? We see multitude of fights, they lose their main event, and whether it be a York Hall or sort of on the smaller hall side, it does get pulled. But then you said no. I mean, just look at the card, look at some of the ticket sellers. We've got Jack McGann is someone who, if you don't know, get to know. MMA background, backed by Tom Hardy. Every time he fights, there seems to be, feels like millions of people there. Celebrities following him around as well. So whatever happens, you've got a good night of boxing Friday.
Yeah, well, we could have put on 18 fights on Friday night. We've had an awful lot of momentum over the last year, and so many people want to work with us now because we do really good shows. In fairness, without sort of blowing smoke at our own whatever, we do really good shows. The production's really good. We treat everyone fair. We matchmake really well. We put on a good show for the punters, so we've got this big queue of people who want to work with us, and because of that, you lose a big main event like that. We easily filled the slot. And we still got a solid 10-fight card. Starting off with Jack McGann. It's been the third fight time he's fought for us. Obviously managed by Alfie Warren at Warren Boxing Management. But he's got some real talent. MMA background, trained by Martin Murray. He's on his. He's had 8 fights. He's stopped his last 3. John Brennan, the fight before last, he was pretty good. Really good record. And Pavlakis, who was in his last, who fought last time on the rooftop at the Shankly in Liverpool. He'd had over 30 fights, and 2 of his losses had been by stoppage. So one of them prior to Jack was stoppage, and then Jack stops him in the 5th round. That's a big statement. So they want to fast forward him on. Now he's got Laszlo Toth. This is an IBO European. First time anyone's fought for an IBO European. It's a new title. It's an inaugural one. First time it's been fought for. So we're history making as well, which we're delighted with. But Laszlo Toth's had nearly 40 fights. He's won over 30 of them, 19 by stoppage, and he's had some sort of WBC international and IBF international titles before. It's a massive step up for Jack McGann. They took this fight in a heartbeat. They were like, yeah, great, we've got it. We've got his number. We know how to beat him all day long. It's a really big step up for Jack, but this is the faith that they have. Martin Murray, he works really hard. They think he's got some real talent. He's got some real power. He's learning every fight. And this is just a stepping stone for him onto bigger and better things. And as I said, he brings a massive following. Steve Graham's been at every fight. Tom Hardy's comes along. It's just adds a bit of sort of Hollywood to the show as well. Yeah. A room full of people in a main event. We're pinching ourselves really, but an IBO European is a main event. So yeah, we've lost Khademi-Ahmed, but we've still got a stacked card, led by topped by McGann. And Toth as an IBO European main event. Can't wait for that. And tell you what, and I've said it all the time, I'm a fight fan first and foremost. I'm looking forward to that fight. It's a really good fight.
And it will be a packed out York Hall. Let me ask you I think we had conversations, must have been start of this year or back end of last year now, about sort of how many fights you wanted to put on this year, fight cards. Is this your first one of the year so far, or have you had another one in there?
No, this is the first one, but we've run out sort of 2 shows in 2 weeks. So we've got one the following week in Gloucester, and then we're off. So I think to answer your question, we had 12 last year. We started out thinking we were going to have half a dozen, but ended up having 12. We're probably looking at a similar number. Could be more, could be less. Depends on opportunity, because we're looking at working with other promoters as we've done all year. There might be one up in County Durham. We're definitely going Oxford again. We're definitely going Liverpool again. We've got shows booked at York Hall. We've got Lee Valley, new venue at the end of April. I said County Durham. We may be going to one in Nigeria because we've got our Nigerian boxers.
Nigeria.
You coming to Lagos? Bring in the Cirencester Massive.
You know what? Yeah. If there is an opportunity for me to come to Lagos, just a ticket off the book, I'm coming.
I saw the little eyes light up then, Charlie.
I like ticking off new countries, and if you're serious about Nigeria, then I am coming. Bring me on the Neilson plane.
If you're not too busy with the Cirencester Tourist Board, Lagos has got your name on it. I think we're probably, it's a very different kind of show over there. It's yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
it'd just be an experience, eh?
Oh God, it's massive. Nigeria, the boxing following. I get messages every day from Nigerian
so do
boxers,
I, yeah.
of course, who want to come over
Yeah,
here. So it's huge over there. So we were thinking about doing. We've got our own boxers, Tosin and Elizabeth Fashoba, the Commonwealth silver medalist. They're Nigerian. But having them on the show over there, but maybe doing some sort of tournament on the undercard with some Nigerian boxers with a pro contract over here as the prize, and knowing what the calibre of and the amount of people interested in boxing in Nigeria.
You've actually got me really excited with that. I can't lie.
Absolutely. Well, a lot of people are interested in this. There's a lot of money. I mean, the population of London is 6.5 million, and Lagos, I think it's 20 million. Huge, a lot of money over there. I'll tell you one thing, I won't be dealing with any cash, and we'll definitely have some security, mate. Stick with me, we'll have security.
Yeah, the land to some armed guards and all sorts. Yeah. Gloucester, next week. I won't be there, unfortunately, but we'll be rooting for the Southwest boys. Max Mudway in a main event, I believe. A bit of a long time coming for him. I think he sort of managed to stay active, but had his frustration. I remember the first time I spoke to him, he was eyeing whether it be an area title or whatever. But now, opportunity will be main event in Gloucester.
Well, actually, we've lost that fight. Injury, that one's dropped. So we've still got a solid sort of 12-fight card on there. Max is absolutely devastated. This was a step up for him as well. English eliminator, he'd been training really hard. Bezraki as well. It got rescheduled before because of an injury to Baz. And so everyone's absolutely gutted. But, Max is going to be there on the night. He's walking around with his foot in a boot. It's just one of those things.
Nothing
Training
you can do, yeah.
Yeah, nothing. What can you do? It's just one of those things. It's one of those things. So we've got Brad Ingram, our Gloucester boy, top of the bill. In his 7th fight, we're going to build him up quite nicely. He's going to be fighting for titles this year at welterweight. He's just causing lots of trouble to everyone in sparring. He's sparring middleweights, like heavyweights. He's a proper handful. We've got Shab Hadri, the Afghan warrior, and he comes out with his Afghan tribal dress, like a big bear, sort of bear.
I was always surprised at just how good his fans were.
Yeah, and he sells absolutely massive tickets. And, in fairness to Shabs as well, he's got this brilliant backstory. He was from Afghanistan, from back in the days where the Americans were there and the Taliban, and he come over as an asylum seeker, and he was telling me stories of how terrible it was over there. And he's over here now. He's in a final year of university degree. He's an undefeated professional boxer. He's a lovely guy. Good on him, and you want people like him.
We need stories like that in boxing, don't we?
And he's a lovely guy. You just want him to just win. And and he's one tough guy. He's going to win. He's going to win things. We've got El Gordito, Lewis Roberts with the mariachi band and the sombreros. I mean, this is like, somebody said it's bordering on WWF, but I tell you what, you can raise the roof. The atmosphere is going to be electric. We've got some great. We've got Baz Oosterheim on the big cruiserweight knockout artist. Some really cracking guys. Some Southwest boxers on the bill. It's a great one. Shame you're not going to be there in the Gloucestershire show, Charlie Parsons.
I know. I'm in Liverpool instead. Let me ask you, Luke Watkins, Southwest fighter, managed to get himself a big fight on a big card. He's on a Cordina Rakimov undercard. He fights Jordan Thompson, a very, very good cruiserweight, but someone who was given a little bit of a test in his last fight. Luke, someone who sort of was on the scene, I suppose, from sort of 2015 to 2018 and vanished a little bit, now has come back onto the scene. Can he do it, do you think?
Oh, most definitely. We've worked with Luke a lot. He's local. He's fought on a few of our shows, and he's a real talent. He can bang. I went to see him defend his English at the end of last year over in Essex, and he just took him apart. And was it 6 rounds? I think. Just so Jordan Thompson's a handful. If you look at his record on paper, he looks great, yeah, and he's got some stoppages on there. But if you analyse his record, you think, yeah, Luke can beat him. My money's on our man Luke Watkins all day for that, because Luke's got a dig on him, and he's got a very clever boxing brain. And once he gets past this, I mean, he's current English champion, but and it's now on a big TV platform, isn't it? He comes away with a good, entertaining win on this, and then the next few fights are really interesting for him.
Well, Mark, that might be one you want to have a little dabble on, because I imagine he will go as a big outsider in that fight. But the bookies don't always get it right. Moving on to the world of boxing as a whole, Conor Benn he has been somewhat cleared by the WBC to fight. When I done my interview with Eddie, unfortunately, it was just a really, really brief letter from the WBC, and then I maybe had a minute to skim read it, and then I had to interview him. Since then, the whole egg contamination thing's come out. Conor Benn's team have come out and said, we're not actually really happy with how the WBC have worded this. People are now starting to say, well, what, our fighters can't have as much as 4 eggs a day, 4 eggs, or whatever it is. But it's boxing. We have these sagas that go on and on. It feels crazy to me that I've been asking the same question now for 6 months. We're getting more and more out every couple of months or so. But does it leave a stain on the sport? I mean, the more that comes out, what do you make of it all?
You know, he's been cleared by the WBC, but they're a sanctioning body, not a governing body, as we know. In my personal opinion, he's not in the clear until the British Boxing Board clear him. And I'm not a scientist, so what I see in the public domain, I don't know. If lots of eggs can you know, who knows?
It's difficult though for fighters now reading that, and they may second guess themselves, thinking, "Well, I'm a clean athlete. Does this mean I can't go and eat eggs myself?" I mean,
well, you know, I sent to my boxers the UCAD, the listings to come out with prohibitive substances on there. Eggs isn't on there. You can eat eggs, so I don't know. I think the British Boxing Board need to see all the evidence, and they are one of the most robust and respected boxing boards, governing bodies in the world. If they clear him, then I completely believe everything, because I believe that they won't have any ulterior motives. I'm not saying the WBC do, but they'll if he's clean and the evidence proves it, fair enough, and you've got to give him a chance. But I'd like to see the British Boxing Board have sight of the evidence and let them make a decision. Until then, well, he may have been passed to fight or be passed to be in someone's rankings. But, you know, until the board pass him, there's still a question mark, I'm afraid, from me personally.
I think fair enough, and I think the rest of the boxing world still sort of were waiting to make their decision. Some people may have made their decision. Who can say we blame them as fans from a third party? Onto the heavyweights, Tyson Fury, Alexander Usyk. I was asking you about this fight last year. It's still not over the line. Usyk actually has been much more vocal than Tyson in the build-up. We see a lot of, I say in the build-up, the fight's not being announced, but Tyson's always giving it shit to his opponents, calling out Derek Chisora, calling out Anthony Joshua, calling out Deontay Wilder, whoever it may be. He's been quite quiet on this front. It was meant to be Saudi, March, April. Now they say end of April, Wembley. And now maybe Saudi Arabia again. Is this fight even going to happen, Mark?
Well, I saw an Eddie Hearn interview recently, and he was saying about the timescale they put on for Joshua, and it had to be signed by then because they had to have it on by February. Now it's April 29th. We don't know which country, where it's going. It's all very quiet. And even if, I mean, I was supposed to have a show on April 29th, which I had to move because he's not going up against Tyson Fury. Yeah, absolutely. So who knows? But I'm surprised the clock is ticking. April 29th isn't a long time away for a fight of this magnitude. If it's over here, that's 90,000 tickets. If it's in Saudi, well, the money's already there, isn't it?
You don't need to worry about tickets.
You don't have to worry about it. But I'm surprised it's so quiet. But I do think that I said it after I saw AJ Usyk at Tottenham. I thought, you know, controversially, I thought Usyk might have Tyson Fury's number. So that might come back to haunt me. But what do I know? But then I had money on Ruiz to beat Joshua, so I did all right out of that one.
This is a man who picks his upsets well. I think more and more talk. I think it was always going to be a 50-50 fight on the purse split. I'm hearing more from Fury's team saying that Fury is the A side and that he should be taking 60% of the purse. Obviously, from a commercial perspective, they're not wrong. He is the A side. Don't get me wrong. If the fight were to happen in Ukraine, I'm sure Usyk could sell 500,000 tickets if there was a stadium that held 500,000. But you have to look at it from a global perspective. Fury is the A side, many fights in America. But Usyk has got 3 of the belts at heavyweight. Tyson only with 1 of the 4. Is this a 50-50 fight? I personally think it's one that 50-50. Have Usyk going in and sort of away territory against Joshua twice and causing the upset in the first fight and then doing it again in the second fight. He obviously has the 3 belts, Tyson the 1, but you know, the commercial platform comes in. But really, 60-40, 50-50, 55-45 maybe. We just want to see it happen.
Yeah, I mean, the percentages and the amount of money they're talking about...
It's going to be madness anyway.
It's mad, yeah, it's mad anyway. But it's probably a 50-50 reality. You know, Tyson Fury's got the massive profile. And you could see against the Derek Chisora fight, it was not even a great fight, but still sold out the stadium and still sold loads of pay-per-views. He's got this crossover following now. Everyone knows who he is. But Usyk's got the belts. So, you know, one offsets the other. So probably a 50-50. You hear through the grapevine that Tyson Fury's holding out for more money. Usyk's not backing down. And, you know, they'll probably just get over the line and a big announcement and they'll steamroll into it. But it's got to happen, isn't it? Usyk holds all the belts, but this is probably the biggest fight for him out there. So he's got to make it happen if he was to lose this. But who knows? I mean, if it doesn't happen, who's Fury going to fight next? Who's Usyk going to fight next? That throws it right up in that. You know, everyone wants to see this, a unified world title.
We have to see it, and it'll be the first undisputed champion in the 4-belt era.
Yeah, absolutely, and I'll be going to watch it wherever it is.
Mark, 2 more from me. Joshua Franklin. What do you make of Jermaine Franklin as the next opponent for AJ? Obviously, AJ at a little bit of a point with rebuilding. I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. Franklin gave a good fight to Dillian White. People say, why not give Dillian White the fight? Dillian won, but I suppose you can then go and do Joshua White 2 in a big stadium in the summer, provided Joshua does come through Franklin. What does he have to do? Is it more about probably Joshua's headspace than anything, you know, believing that he is the dog's bollocks like he did back in 2016, 17, 18?
He definitely needs a confidence boost, doesn't he? He needs to come and just walk through someone.
Yeah.
Franklin, on paper, is quite good. Did all right with Dillian. I think a few people thought he was good enough. Yeah, absolutely. So he's certainly a credible opponent. I think AJ gets a lot of stick. He says, 12 world title fights, back-to-back fights. He doesn't have any of these sort of fights where just tick over fights to make a couple of quid. Every fight is a big title fight. You look at his resume. I think he's earned it. That's an easier fight. But also they've got some big fights on the horizon when he gets through this. And there's no rush to go straight back into another one. It's obviously a bit of a rebuild. Tyson Fury's fighting Derek Chisora. If they announce AJ versus Chisora, he'd get ruined for that. 80,000 people turned to watch Tyson Fury fight Derek Chisora. So he can't really win, can he? So he should do it. He should do it in style. If he doesn't do it in style, he labours to a 12 round and doesn't look good. That won't do him any favours. I think where everyone's expecting him to walk through Franklin, 6-7 rounds and look impressive, and that'll build up some really big fights later in the year. But he gets through him, they start talking about Dillian White or someone else, one of these other big fights. Then people will forget about the Franklin fight and they will be focused on that. So let's just give him his chance. He's earned it. I think he's done an awful lot for boxing. He's done an awful lot for Matchroom. He's done an awful lot for boxing. We've had the biggest pay-per-views in history, the biggest attendances in history.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't be in the position I'm in today without AJ, in all honesty. So.
Yeah, so he's got his critics, but he's done an awful lot for everyone involved in boxing. I've been involved in boxing. My dad was a boxer. We've been involved in it since we were tiny. And he's done a massive amount, a huge amount, and we can't take that away. If he wants an easier fight, let him have an easier fight. All his armchair fans is giving him criticism. Let him have one. And it's still not that easy a fight, is it? This Franklin is a bit of a handful still.
Mark, finally from me, we're coming up to the 30-minute mark. Gervonta Davis against Ryan Garcia. After months and months and months, similar to Fury-Usyk, it has finally been announced. Steven Espinoza, PBC have managed to come to an agreement with the guys at DAZN and Golden Boy. This just has to be good for boxing, right? Finally seeing more. I mean, we see cooperation over here. We've still never seen Matchroom and Queensberry work directly together in terms of co-promotion. Maybe the odd fighter going over here and there, but this is a co-promotion, a co-pay-per-view. Good for the sport.
Well, I think it's a sign of the times now because there are so many more platforms and they're just hungry for content. Their hands are being forced while they all have to work together because they don't have enough fighters themselves, the big high caliber ones, just to keep banging out these big pay-per-views. So they need to fight each other. It's different when there was just a couple of big promoters and a couple of TV channels. This day and age, it's like I said, so many platforms. So it's good. It's a sign. I've heard that Frank Smith gets on really well with George Warren. So Matchroom and Queensberry are talking. It doesn't matter who is talking as long as they're talking to each other. And like you said, this fight as well. They're all talking to each other. They're making these big fights. Only good for boxing. On our level, we work with anyone. Our competitors, I'm on the phone to them. We're sharing our boxes. We're putting our boxes on each other's cards, making 50-50s and title fights. That's only good for those of the 70s and 80s have long gone. I mean, Frank Warren was a disruptor back in the early 80s with the old cartel, and it's being disrupted again now, isn't it? So it's only good for boxing.
Mark Neilson, as always, an absolute pleasure. Look forward to seeing what you do this year, and we will keep going back and forth. All the best come Saturday night. Just a final message: Jack McGann, York Hall this Friday night, even not Saturday night.
Absolutely, Friday night, York Hall. Doors open 6 o'clock. Massive 10 fight card. Finishing with McGann, Laszlo Toth for the first RBO European, and don't miss it. Great show, and I'll see you in Lagos, Nigeria, right?
Nigeria it is. We got someone at the door. Mark Neilson, thank you very much.